All right. We are here on the webinar, and as you guys are coming in, as usual, I want you to find your chat box and type into the chat box where you are tuning in from, so we have an idea as to exactly where you're located. I like to kind of get us started by doing that. So type in the chat box where you are tuning in from. This is a very popular topic that a lot of people are wanting information on. And so we have a lot of people that have registered for this webinar. We had over 350 people register for this webinar today. And so we're going to be diving into the topic today, which is going to be all about working with investors and being able to secure capital from those investors for your multifamily deals. Now, some of you might have thought this was going to be talking about more about how to find investors or, raising capital, or if you will. And this is about raising capital, but it's not about how to actually find investors. So if you want to go to our YouTube channel, you can find some additional information there, and some other webinars that we've done. And we'll be doing one coming up soon on raising capital. But we are today going to be focusing on really that investor relations piece of it and being able to secure capital for these deals. But before I get started, one of the things I wanted to mention, as you guys are coming in, I know several of you have already done that. Go ahead and type into that chat box. And let me know where you're tuning in from. So we have Tom from Knoxville, Tennessee. Good to see you, Tom. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple weeks here. In Columbia, South Carolina, which is where I'm located. We have Aaron out of Chicago, Edgar out of Fort Lauderdale. We got New York City. Got Gaithersburg. We got Birmingham, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Philly, Atlanta, San Diego, Cleveland, LA. Got some people from Canada, from Tony all the way from Calgary. Another one from Chicago, Kingsport, Tennessee, Charlotte, North Carolina. Kelly Garrett, good to see you on here as well. Kelly from Charleston. Chris from Norman, Oklahoma. Got somebody on here from Panama. I got Denise Webb on here. Good to see you on here, Denise. So we got people from all over the world here on the webinar today, and we're going to be talking about this, working with investors and securing capital. This is kind of a precursor to an intensive that I have coming up as well. And right now, for those of you who have followed me in the past, I usually do this via video. I'm actually on the road, driving down the road. No, I'm not the one actually driving. I have Brandon here with us in the car driving for us. And we're actually driving from our Greenville properties to our Raleigh, North Carolina properties this afternoon to do a property tour out there and also look at another acquisition that we're looking at. And so I had already planned this event and then scheduled it, so I'm going to go ahead and do this, but I won't have my video on just because of the connection issues. But my audio might sound a little bit off than normal as well. So I've dialed in from my cell phone, so you might hear a little bit of background noise, but that's the reason for that, just so you guys are aware. So Melissa is actually on the back end running the technology on our team. And Melissa, if you would go ahead and go to the MFIN intensive page so that they can take a look at that as we're reviewing this. I think that would be helpful for them. So if you want to find out more information about the intensive that we have coming up, you can go to www.multifamilyinvestornation. Multifamily, hold on a second, I'm typing it in here into the chat box at the same time. multifamilyinvestornation.com/intensive. I did go ahead and type that into your chat box, so you can click on that and go straight to the page to kind of take a little bit of a deeper dive into the intensive that we have coming up. But the intensive that we have coming up is going to be done here where I'm located in Columbia, South Carolina. And I know we have several of you on that have already registered for this in-person event. This is not a large, multi-hundred person, 1,000-person event. This is really exclusively for those of you who are serious about starting and trying to put inside your syndication business a plan to be able to manage your investors and also raise millions and millions of dollars from your investors and do it effectively and efficiently. And so go to that website, find out more information about what we're doing there. It's going to be March 24th and 25th. So we're right under 3 weeks away from that event. And it's going to be limited to 40 people. So this is going to be more of a workshop style. It's an intensive. And right now, you can actually go there and register. And I'll type into the chat box a discount code. So when you go to register for it, you can actually get a discount on it as well. So the discount code is early bird. So if you register today or in the next couple of days, you will get that early bird special pricing that will reduce the price of it for you as well. So go there, take a look at it, and this webinar today will be a precursor for what a lot of the details we're going to talk about at the event. But it's a really fun event. So this is the first intensive that we've actually done, and it's going to be, you're going to have a lot of one-on-one time with myself as well as my other team members, Melissa, who's on with us today, as well as Ann, my assistant that helps me from the investor relations side of things. You'll have some one-on-one access to them and how we build our team out. And then one of the things that we're going to be doing on Tuesday night, March 24th, this is a Tuesday and a Wednesday. On March 24th, you can see there on the screen, we're going to be having an exclusive dinner at my house with my family and our 4 children. And we're going to have a lot of fun with games, ping pong tournament, maybe even go in the backyard, do some 4-wheeling if you want to do that. And have my son, who's 7 years old, he's got his own 50cc 4-wheeler. He'll take you around the backwoods and stuff like that. And have a lot of time for networking and a lot of fun as well. So it'll be all day Tuesday and Wednesday, and look forward to seeing you there. So go check it out. Go take some time to look at it. And then the second thing I wanted to talk to you about is our MFIN premium program. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail there, but it's a lot more one-on-one access or group access, if you will, to me through our group weekly coaching calls. And then we also have an online library of everything from A to Z on multifamily. So right now we do have a 60-day free trial on that. That is going away very soon. So probably by the middle of March, we'll be getting rid of that. So if you want to have access to the MFIN premium program and have a 60-day free trial, you can do that by going to mfinpremium.com, registering there for the MFIN premium program. It's only $99 a month after the 60-day free trial, and you can cancel anytime. So go there. Would love to have you be a part of that as well. And let's go ahead and go back to the webinar page for today as we go ahead and dive in to the content for today. So first off, we're going to be talking about how you come up with a successful investor management plan. And then we're going to be talking about what is this investor triad that you can use and implement in your own business for building relationships with investors. We're going to be talking about what you should be doing in between deals to keep your investors engaged. And then we're also going to be talking about some different tips that I'm going to give you for raising money once you have a deal. So again, we're not talking about finding investors. It's really like once you've already found your investors, how do you maintain them and kind of build a fence around them to make sure that they will want to continue to do business with you? And it's all about making sure you have this successful investor management plan. One of the things I would like for you to do, Melissa, on your other screen, and when I'm ready to talk about it, is get a picture ready or a sample ready of the newsletter that we send out on a regular basis as well, because I want to show them an example of that. We'll talk about that in a couple of bullets later on, but I do want to give them an example for that. So we're going to be talking about an investor management plan, the investor triad, and then ways to put a fence around your investors and keep them engaged in between deals, and then also the process for being able to raise money. Got a lot to cover today, so my goal is to keep this to about 20, 25, maybe 30 minutes tops, and I'll open it up to a few questions at the end. So I'm not looking at my screen from the chat box side of things. So I'm going to go through my notes here, and then I'll open it up for questions towards the end. So first off, when it comes to an investor management plan, you have to be able to think about this in a way that allows you to be able to build relationships with those investors. Because when we talk about investor relations, that's exactly what it is. It's a relationship business, right? So we have to make sure that we build those relationships with our investors. And that investor management plan should lay out, number one, how you're finding those investors. Number two, how are you going to keep those investors engaged? And number three, how are you going to be able to secure that capital when you're raising money for those projects? So the number four, you have to know how to continue to communicate with your investors after they've already been in a deal with you. And one of the things that we are doing right now, which I'll talk about in a minute, is we're doing investor dinners with our investors across the country when I travel around. So if I'm traveling to say Las Vegas for a conference, I'll host an investor dinner out there and be able to have a meet and greet with my investors. We did that recently in Charlotte, North Carolina, which isn't that far away from me. We actually just drove up there primarily for that. We also looked at another property. But when we were up there and had that dinner, at the end of the dinner, I asked the investors, I said, let's go around the room. There was like, 9 or 10 investors there. So let's go around the table here. And I want you to share with me, or share at the table, what is it about our group that you like the most and why you continue to want to invest with us? And there was about half the room that hadn't invested with us before, and the other half had invested with us before. And it allowed us to be able to have some feedback from those investors as to, okay, that was Brandon going off the side of the road. So he about hit a deer, I think, or the car in front of us. Sorry about that. So what that allowed us to do is number one, the investors that were there that had already invested with us, they were able to talk to the other investors that had not invested before. They were actually able to, build that, so let me back up. So the investors that were there that had already invested with us, they were able to talk to the investors who had not invested before to build that relationship and be able to build that confidence. And the ones who had not been invested with us before, we asked them kind of the same question of, what is it about our group that made you want to come to the dinner today, or that makes you want to invest with us? And being able to get those investors together like that continues to build that relationship, deepen that relationship, and also allows those investors to be able to network with each other at that dinner and also afterwards, because they're all in that same area. So that's the importance of that investor management plan. And those are the 4 main things that we're going to be covering at that intensive in Columbia, South Carolina later this month, because this piece of a syndication business is the most important of any type of syndication business, because I don't care if you can find deals, but if you don't have the money to close them, you need to stop finding deals. So I still believe you have to be doing both at the same time, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to find investors and be able to build those relationships with them. Later today, we actually have a buyer call at the property that we're looking at and we're investing final on. And one of the number one questions they're going to ask is where is your equity coming from? And you have to be confident with that equity to be able to win deals and be able to be awarded those projects. So the next thing I want to talk about is this Investor Triad. So I'm going to see if this will actually work on here. And maybe you could actually open up the whiteboard, Melissa, because I think you've seen me do this before. I want to do the Investor Triad. And so if you could open up the whiteboard and put a triangle. And what I'd like for everybody to do is go ahead and get out a piece of paper and do this with me. So get out a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper, on the piece of paper, put a big, huge triangle. And of course, I'm not very good at graphic design and art, so I'm sure Melissa's triangle will look much better than mine, which I can already tell that it does. And in the middle of that triangle, I want you to put the words Investor Triad. So draw a triangle and type in to the middle of it, Investor Triad. And then what I would like for you to do once you do that, and let me just double check here. Good. All right. So on the top of that triangle, I want you to put the word know, K-N-O-W. And then on the bottom left, I want you to put in the word like. And then in the bottom right, I want you to put in there the word trust. And while you guys have this written out here, I want you to tell me into the chat box. Give me a quick answer to this. Between those 3 things, know, like, and trust, which of those 3 is the most important? So go do it now. I know you're writing this down as well, but in that chat box, I want you to type in there, which is the most important? Know, like, or trust. So I have 2 or 3 people in here who have done it so far. I got a few more in here. Good. I got know, like, trust, no, trust. All right. So I'm going to blow your mind when it comes to this know, like, and trust, okay? Because all of us really kind of default to, not all of us, most of us default to either like or trust. The majority of you are saying trust. But the most important when it comes to investor relations is that very top piece. So that's why I put it at the top, is because you have to get people to start to know you and know who you are. Otherwise, they will never have the opportunity to be able to like you and then to be able to construct an opinion as to whether or not they trust you or not. And so you have to start building that investor management plan to a point where you can actually start to get people to know who you are, so that you can go through that next step of liking and trusting them, or having them like and trust you. And just like Melissa put on there, On that piece of paper that you just drew, you need to put an arrow from no to like, and then from like to trust, and then back up to no. And the reason why the trust goes back up to no is because this is really where you will start to catapult and have a hockey stick in your investor relations when your existing investors trust you to the point where they've invested with you and you've performed. And guess what they start to do? They start to bring more people that they know into your fold, so that those people will starting to know you, and it starts that whole cycle over and over and over again. And those word of mouth and referrals from those investors are the most powerful referrals you will ever have, because the hurdle for building that trust and credibility goes way down. Because the moment somebody refers an investor over, that credibility is already really high. And so let's go back to the other slide there. Hopefully that was helpful. Did you guys find that helpful? Type it into the chat box. Let me know, did you find that helpful? Because I think a lot of times we do get caught up in that whole, thinking that we have to just build trust. But we really need to start focusing on that know piece as well. People have to start to know you in order for them to be able to, have an opinion as to whether they like or trust you. So we talked about I have a question here. How do you get them to know you? So that has to do with finding investors and things like that. But once they are under your, say they go to your website, they fill out your investor form, that's just the beginning stages of that relationship. At that point, they probably just like you. They don't necessarily trust you at that point, right? That's when you got to start to, build that relationship with them and start to really, deepen that relationship. And so one of the things that we do are those investor dinners. The investor dinners allow us to be able to build relationships with them. And, you don't have to do the dinners if you don't want to. You can go and do coffee. You can do, just smaller events. You can go to their offices or whatever you'd like to do. But once your budget increases, you want to make sure that you can continue to build those relationships. And I can't tell you how many cards that I get in the mail after we do those investor dinners that allow us to be able to, I just know that we've kind of deepened that relationship with them. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the investor newsletter that we do, because one of the things that we do to kind of put a fence around our investors and continue to keep them engaged is we actually mail them an investor newsletter. And so, Melissa, if you want to bring that up, the example of that investor newsletter, we get every phone call that I get on with an investor, I get their mailing address and I send them our monthly newsletter to their mailbox every single month. And that way they can actually have some, that way we can continue to keep them engaged, not just via email, but we can also keep them engaged via the mail as well. I don't have on Melissa, it's not showing up here on the screen. I'm not sure if you need to just share the other window or something like that. I'm not sure. Sometimes you can just press there it is. Perfect. So this is the newsletter that we send out to our investors. We just sent this one out actually last week. So it just dropped last week, and I actually got mine in the mail yesterday. So these are newsletters that we send out. This right here is a 12-page newsletter. If you want to scroll through there, Melissa, just to kind of give them a quick glance and example as to kind of how we put things together and the topics that we create. Each one of our managing partners will usually write an article in there. And then we'll also, as you can see here, we actually include an investor interview of one of our investors. And then we also will include some information about education, like this right here, understanding the internal rate of return. A lot of investors are familiar with ROI, but they don't necessarily know as much about the IRR. So we made an article on there about the IRR and different calculations and formulas for it. And then, so a lot of this is really just kind of wanting to be able to keep them engaged with us and keep them educated, and we're educating them, right? So we want them to be able to stay with us as much as possible, and we want to be the ones that are educating them, right? And that's what makes it, allows us to be able to kind of have that fence around our investors, is we're educating them and keeping them as part of us. There's a little blurb right there about our investor dinners. You can kind of see what I was talking about as far as those investor dinners. And so that's an important piece of making sure that you continue to keep that fence around them as well. We also include a couple of things that are kind of fun. Like you can see on the back there, we have an investor word search that we include as well. And we also have a coloring page that we include for their children. And you can see that little section about the children there. If you want to go to that page, Melissa, we had one of our investors, you can see there, sent us a picture of their daughter, their 2-year-old daughter, actually coloring the coloring page. And the funny thing is that property is actually called Willowbrook, and his daughter's middle name is Willow. So we put a little blurb in there about the newsletter. And of course, you know, you can go back to the other page now, Melissa. This is something that takes a little bit extra time, a little bit of extra effort. But right now you might be thinking, well, I don't have the budget, or I don't have the money, or I don't have the time to do something like this. You have to start somewhere. So, you know, instead of starting with this nice kind of full gloss color, you know, nicely printed, you know, bound newsletter, you can start off with something smaller, like a little, you know, a one-page letter or a two-page letter talking about something inside of your business or whatever that you want to inform your investors about. But at the end of the day, when we raise money for our next project, I want to make sure that we are at the top of their mind, which is, again, another one of the reasons why we do monthly distributions. So we're going to get them we're going to hit their bank account every single month. We're going to hit their mailbox every single month. We're going to hit their email box every single month. And every property that they're in, they're getting an email update from us every month as well. And so we're constantly, you know, wanting to try to stay in touch with our investors. And again, that's why it's so important to have a relationship, to build the relationships with our investors, is to have that investor management plan built out up front. And that's one of the things we're going to help you with when you come to the Columbia Intensive, is you will walk away with a written investor management plan to fit your business at the end of that 2 days. So we're going to be having some workshop style things where you're actually going to be working on your business. And that way, because a lot of times we focus on working in our business, we don't always work on it. This is time for you to set aside to actually go and actually work on your business. And I promise you, it'll make the world of difference when you go to raise capital. Because I've seen so many people that have tried to, you know, put projects together and raise money, and they don't have their process in place, they don't have their systems in place, and they just have a hard time being able to raise funds. So it's important for you to have that in place. The last thing I wanted to talk about was raising money. So, and this is kind of what I was talking about as far as having that other piece of making sure that you can raise money effectively and efficiently. Number one, you need to make sure that you have a form online, or an ability online for their investors to actually submit a soft reserve, because those soft reserves are important. I've talked to people before where I've been like, so how much money have you raised for your project so far? And they've said, oh, you know, we've raised all the money so far. And I'm like, oh, well, how much is in the actual bank account? Oh, we don't have any money yet. And I'm like, okay, well, how are you getting your commitments? Oh, I've talked to people and they've told me verbally that they're in for it. And I'm like, yes, but that's great, but you also have to get them to actually commit to the project. And one of the best ways to do that is to have them go fill out a form online. It doesn't have to be a very complicated form, but fill out a form online that allows them to be able to make that commitment of filling out the information and pressing the commit button. And we call it, of course, a soft commit, because it lets us know that they are interested in that investment. It allows us to go to send them the disclosure documents, the PPM, that private placement memorandum. And then and with that soft commitment, they're not saying I'm 100% in, but they're saying, hey, I'm interested in reviewing your documents further, and so I can make that hard commitment to actually invest in your projects. And so that's an important piece to it. And we do have a rule, though, in our group, that if an investor soft commits 3 times in a row and they do not invest in a project, then we remove them from our investor list. And I let my investors know that up front, that, you know, I want you to use that soft commit form to be able to reserve your spot in the deal. But if you go through 3 of our offerings and you don't invest, then we're probably not going to be a good fit for you. So I don't want to continue to waste your time, and I don't want you to have to continue to waste my time either. And so we just politely remove them from the email list. And we don't send them an email saying, hey, we've removed you from the list. They just stop receiving our emails, because we just remove them on the back end from our email list, because we just don't feel like they're going to be a good fit for us. And so we send out an email to be able to do those soft commits. They click on the form. It has the soft commit details on there. It also includes information about the investor summary that we put together on the project. We have a link to the webinar that we're going to do on that project, and to be able to provide them with as much information as possible. But we want to make sure that they can soft commit early and reserve their spot if they have that capital and they want to invest. And so those are the main things I wanted to cover today on the webinar about investor management and investor relations, and also being able to secure capital, because you need to make sure that you have that process in place. Because if you don't have that process in place and you don't have that capital secured, then what can happen is that you will think that you have all the money there to be able to raise. But if you don't have that process in place that your investors could actually follow to get to the point of wiring the funds, then you're going to have a hard time raising the money. So let me go ahead and open up to some questions and see if there's any questions that you have going on right now. And we have probably about 5 or 7 minutes here that we can take on a few questions here. So let's see. I cannot make the dates for this March intensive. Do you have any idea when the next one will take place? I really am interested. So I know several of you have already signed up, and I really appreciate that. And right now, we don't have any future dates for the next intensive, but because of the demand that we've had for this intensive already, we will likely be doing another one, but it'll probably be like maybe 2 or 3 months down the road. So I will keep you posted of that whenever we have that next one coming up. But I would highly recommend you try to come to this one if you can. And the nice thing about coming into an event like this that's in person, especially this kind of close, like, 40-person, smaller networking type of an event as well, is that you may potentially be able to find a partner to be able to partner with. And these are great venues to be able to do that. So a lot of times when you go to these larger events, you don't have enough one-on-one time with everybody. But you got to go to an event like this, come over to my house and have dinner with us, and really trying to deepen the relationships with other people. You may potentially be able to find a partner in the business that can help, support you in different areas. So it's really important for that. All right, let me dismiss this right here. I'm going to open up my chat box and see if there's any questions coming in there. All right, so I don't have any questions coming in, so I'm sure I covered a lot of it, or you just realize that you're going to be able to get a lot of this information by coming to the intensive. So I really look forward to meeting each one of you that are registered already for the intensive coming up. And oh, Brian has a question in here. Do you think the management company should be an investor? I do not think that the management company should be an investor. And the main reason why is because if something is going wrong with the property or wrong with the property management, it's harder to kick them out. Now, you can still have clauses in place to be able to get them out and override them on certain decisions, but there's still going to be that conflict when you have that. So we, as a company, do not allow our property management companies to invest alongside us as a company into our properties because of that kind of nuance. We don't want to have that there because of that friction. So Winston is saying, I'll be there for the intensive. What's for dinner? My wife is handling that, so I'm not really sure yet, but I'll promise you that it'll be really good. And my kids are already really excited about it because they're planning to do s'mores in the backyard because we have a fire pit out there, and you guys can enjoy some s'mores out there over the fire. And we even have a hot tub out there that is heated up and stuff. Obviously, it's a hot tub. But you can, if you want to bring your trunks or your swimsuit or whatever, we're going to be having that heated up as well. So looking forward to having you there. On average, an investor, $100,200, what is the rate of return? So I'm not 100%. What's he doing? I have a train going by, so I apologize. For an average investor of 100 to 249, I'm not really sure the question there, Ronnie, but I think it might be, what is the rate of return typically on these types of projects for an investor who puts in between $100 to $250,000? And so those are great questions, and I don't want to get into compliance reasons for our specific group, but if you'd like to find out more information about our group, you can go to passiveinvesting.com, and you can fill out the investor questionnaire there. I'll jump on a one-on-one call with you, and we can discuss your investment goals and go over a lot of these questions, and love to be able to further that conversation with you. So not a problem at all. All right, let's see. Hey, Dan, I hope you're well. Just reading that Thompson book. Does passive investing have any recommendation for third-party verification for accreditation? Yes, Lee. We recommend and have used in the past verifyinvestor.com for the accreditation verifications. You can also just have the investor submit from their attorney or their CPA or some licensed professional financial advisor that they meet the qualifications as an accredited investor, and that also is a verification of that as well. So we have also used in verifyinvestor.com for that piece of it. Well, that's all the questions that. Katrina, we have one more coming in. Does each investment have its own website? No. So each property has their own website because they have it's from the resident-facing website, but each investment does not have its own website. All of our investments stay off the website, mostly because we do 506B as in Bravo exemptions under the Regulation D, the 506B as in Bravo. So we do not have a specific website for it. But it wouldn't be a bad idea if you're doing a 506C to have a dedicated page on your main website for it, I think that'd be a good idea. But we don't do that for ourselves. So, all right. Thank you, each one of you, for joining us today. I'm not sure, Melissa, did you have a chance here to refresh the page and be able to get that next one ready, or did I have you distracted a little bit?
No, I did not. I was not able to do that this time.
Okay. Yeah. I figured you probably wouldn't, so don't worry about it. A lot of times we'll try to have that next webinar ready for your register right now, but we'll make sure that we send out the recording to this for you, and then we'll also send out the link to register for the next webinar coming up next week. And do you have, Melissa, the topic for next week? It's probably on the calendar somewhere.
I do. Give me 1 second. Oops.
Strategies for underwriting apartment syndications. Is that it?
Yes.
March 12th. So, and that's going to be along Danny Randazzo is actually going to be joining us for that. He's our main financial underwriter for our projects, and so he'll be joining us next week on March 12th, right at 12 p.m. Eastern as usual. Thank each one of you for being here. Looking forward to seeing you at the next webinar. And if you can make it, look forward to seeing you in Columbia, South Carolina in just under 3 weeks for the intensive that we're having coming up too. So thank you so much for being here and being attentive, and we'll see you next time.